Have you ever wondered how many mysteries have occurred and remain unsolved? In South Korea, there's a case that shocked the entire nation and left behind many unanswered questions to this day. This case isn't just about a disappearance. It's a tragedy that changed society and left a deep scar on the hearts of the South Korean people. We're talking about the Frog Boys case, Keogu-Rasonen, the disappearance and murder of 5 young boys in Daegu, South Korea in 1991. March 26, 1991 was a significant public holiday in South Korea, marking the first local elections since the fall of the military dictatorship. It was a day that should have been filled with joy, but instead, it became the beginning of an unending nightmare. On the morning of March 26, 1991, 5 boys, Kim Jong-sik, Jo Ho-yeon, Kim Yong-gyu, Park Chan-ian, and Woo Cha-won, left their homes in the Dalso district of Daegu. It's worth noting that their ages are listed as 1 year older due to the Korean age reckoning system, which differs from the Western system. Their purpose that day was to search for salamander eggs near Mount Waryong, a common springtime activity for children in the area. They told their parents they would return soon. Interestingly, another boy named Kim Tae-ryong, aged 9, almost joined them, but listened to his mother's warning not to stray too far from home, a decision that saved his life. On that public holiday, the 5 boys missed their taekwondo lesson. Parents didn't panic immediately, as it was a holiday, and children often played without keeping track of time. They were last seen by a man who asked them where they were going, and the boys replied they were heading to Mount Waryong to find salamander eggs. When the boys didn't return home, their parents grew worried and reported their disappearance to the police. Unfortunately, the police initially dismissed the disappearance, treating them merely as runaways. This initial negligence greatly disappointed the parents and may have contributed to the initial investigation being flawed and missing crucial opportunities. In cases of missing children, time is of the essence. The refusal to act immediately and thoroughly wasted vital chances to find fresh clues or evidence that could have led to the boys. This perception deeply frustrated the parents and highlighted a systemic issue in handling child disappearance cases at the time, a worrying weakness in the justice system.
When the children still didn't return, the case quickly became national news. What followed was one of the largest search efforts in South Korean history. President Roh Tae-woo ordered the deployment of 300,000 police and military personnel along with numerous civilian volunteers. The search was broadcast live on television, keeping the entire country gripped with worry. Mount Waryong, where the boys had gone, was searched over 500 times. The fathers of all 5 boys quit their jobs to search for their children across the country. They did everything possible to keep the case alive and find answers. They faced numerous hoax calls, which added to their pain. Despite the large-scale search ordered by the president, the parents were deeply frustrated with the police's efforts, which they perceived as inadequate. Furthermore, the boys' fathers even suspected a military cover-up as they were followed by intelligence agents. This suspicion was not unfounded. It indicated a severe lack of trust between the public, especially the victims' families, and government institutions. This could reflect the political and social climate in South Korea during the transition from military dictatorship to democracy, where the public might have been skeptical of government transparency and accountability. This distrust became a significant theme in the case, highlighting the tension between citizens and authorities at the time. The case attracted intense national attention and widespread media coverage. The 5 boys were nicknamed Frog Boys because they disappeared while looking for salamander eggs. Their photos, names, and ages were printed on phone cards to raise awareness and aid in their search. Films, books, and songs were created about the case to keep the story alive and continue the search. The extensive Media coverage of this case through various means, such as phone cards, films, books, and songs, was not merely a reflection of public interest. It was a crucial force that kept the case alive in the national consciousness for decades, even after the statute of limitations expired. This demonstrates the power of popular culture and media in driving social justice and legal reform, such as the abolition of the statute of limitations, even when official systems fail. This is a significant example of how art and media can become a force for advocacy and remembrance. This widespread publicity ensured that the Frog Boys case was never forgotten and became a part of South Korean national conscience.
For over a decade, no clues were found, despite extensive searches. On September 26, 2002, more than 11 years after their disappearance, the bodies of all 5 boys were discovered on Mount Waryong by 2 men scavenging for acorns. What's astonishing is that the location where the bodies were found was reportedly within an area that had been thoroughly searched over 500 times already. This is a huge contradiction. If the bodies were there from the beginning, then the massive search must have failed spectacularly, or there was gross negligence. Alternatively, it could suggest that the bodies were moved or buried there after the initial searches were completed. This anomaly raises suspicions about involvement and the possibility of a cover-up, making the case even more mysterious. This raised major questions about the effectiveness of the initial search or the possibility that the bodies were moved after their disappearance. The men who found the bodies initially reported them via an anonymous phone call. Interestingly, there was another report that a man called a daily newspaper a day before the discovery, giving the exact location. Initially, police claimed the boys died of hypothermia. However, the parents immediately rejected this conclusion, pointing out that one of the boys' clothes was found tied in knots and unused bullets were found in his clothes. The initial police claim of death by hypothermia directly contradicted the fact that the bodies were quote-unquote deliberately buried and other evidence like the knotted clothing. This clearly indicates an attempt at a cover-up or poor case management by the police. Later, the police chief even confessed that he used the hypothermia theory as an excuse due to pressure from the press. This confession confirms a lack of professionalism and transparency. The parents immediately rejected this conclusion, demonstrating their deep understanding of their children and the situation. This highlighted a severe disconnect between the authorities and the victims' families, further eroding public trust. Further investigation revealed clear evidence of foul play. Forensic analysis indicated that the skulls of some of the boys, at least 3, had suffered blunt force trauma. These injuries could have been caused by metal farming tools. Items such as rusted bullets and other metal objects were found near the bodies. Surprisingly, a bullet casing was also found in Kim Young-yu's pocket. The condition of the remains and their positioning led investigators to conclude that the boys had likely been murdered and deliberately buried. Police stated that the children could have been killed by someone who may have flown into a rage.
One prominent theory that has emerged over the years is military involvement. The location where the bodies were found was near a military base. There is speculation that the boys may have been accidentally killed during training exercises, and their deaths were subsequently covered up. Bullet casings and rusted bullets were found at the scene, and in one of the boys' pockets. One child reportedly heard a gunshot and screams on election day. A report from that day showed that a military officer, whose identity was never released, did fire a weapon that day, despite it being a holiday. Suspiciously, the military base was never searched.
The military theory is supported by several pieces of evidence: bullet casings at the scene, reports of military gunfire that day, and the fact that the military base was never searched. Furthermore, the fact that the parents were followed by intelligence agents and the history of covert government operations in South Korea, such as the Brothers, which involved the arbitrary arrest and enslavement of children until the mid-1980s, created an environment where a government cover-up was not impossible.
This highlights the severe consequences of opaque state power and public trust, a legacy of the dictatorship. This suspicion was reinforced by evidence such as the discovered bullets and reports that a military officer fired a weapon that day, despite it being a holiday. Another theory is that a local individual or group of individuals lured the boys and murdered them for unknown reasons. Psychological profilers have suggested that the perpetrator might have been someone who knew the boys or the local terrain well. This suggestion from psychological profilers is a crucial aspect of criminal profiling. This contrasts with the military theory, which suggests an accidental error. If it were a local individual, it would imply premeditation or personal anger, possibly involving conflict or psychological issues. The contradiction between these two theories highlights the complexity of investigating cold cases with ambiguous evidence and multiple possibilities. This theory suggests that the murders could have been a result of sudden rage or malicious intent from someone familiar with the boys or the area. The investigation was hampered by the degradation of evidence over time and procedural issues during the initial search. Police mishandled the crime scene. There were false accusations, including the suspicion of Kim Jong-sik's father. Jong-sik's father was accused by a psychologist named Kim Ga-won of burying the children in his house due to his shaky alibi, not remembering what he was doing for 3 hours after the children disappeared. His house was excavated, but nothing was found except Jong-sik's shoe in the toilet. Jong-sik's father was exonerated, but died young from stress and exhaustion. The story of the Frog Boys has been the subject of numerous documentaries, books, and dramatizations in South Korean media. It serves as a poignant reminder of the importance of justice, transparency, and child protection. The case remains one of South Korea's most infamous unsolved crimes. Despite renewed efforts after the discovery, the case remains officially unsolved. On the 30th anniversary of the disappearance, the city of Daegu installed a memorial monument near the location called the Frog Boy Memorial and Children's Safety Prayer Monument. The Daegu police also announced a new task force to review the case from the beginning and follow up on any new information they received. This demonstrates the continued commitment of South Korean society to seek justice for the Frog Boys, despite numerous obstacles.